I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on the Spotlight Network, we're exploring a powerful book. It is called Be Happy or Get the F Out, a bipolar success story. It is your guide to hope, recovery, and designing a life you love. It is written by a wonderful author. Her name is Felicia Keller. This empowering book details her journey through bipolar disorder, from struggling with the diagnosis to embracing a fulfilling, joy-filled life. With humor and unfiltered honesty, the author shares practical tools and personal insights to help others take charge of their own mental health and rewrite their own success stories. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank the team at Atticus Publishing for helping us put her in the spotlight today. And we ask viewers like you to support authors like her by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing her amazing book. The links are below the interview. Felicia, great to see you here today on Spotlight. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you on the show. Let's start out with your diagnosis. How long ago was it? How old were you? And what was your reaction when you heard it?
Yeah, that's a great story. It was back in 2009 when all this kind of started. So I was only 21 and I nobody knew back then. Like bipolar was not a thing. And I just in December of 2009, I started talking really metaphorical and rapid speech and really high energy, and it just progressively got worse and worse. And so in January, it was like the eight crazy nights in the book, is that's what I call it. And what happens, what I've learned now is what happens is hypomania is when you're really rapid speech and a lot of energy. Nobody really knew. It was kind of my personality that way anyway. Then it became weirder, as in it got more delusional and grandiose. So I have this thought in my head from a normal Felicia thought, like, I want to be famous one day and all this kind of stuff. Well, it became very delusional. And I told myself that I was going to be famous and I have arrived. And so, in my delusional, manic thoughts, which we didn't know that at the time, I thought that it was the best kept secret of the world and all these celebrities knew. And I started talking to like Jimmy Fallon on his late show through the TV and just weird, just got really bad, right? And so, my parents were called, my friends knew what was going on. They were like, this isn't right. So at that point, I was sent to the hospital here in Louisville, Kentucky, and they wanted to make sure I wasn't like on drugs or something, you know? And so at that point, it progressively got back to delirious mania, where I thought that the nurse at the hospital was Oprah Winfrey dressed up and doing her research on me because I had arrived. And I truly believe that. And it just, that's delirious, you know? And so at that point, I was then taken to a psychiatric facility and then was diagnosed bipolar. But I didn't really even know what was going on until afterwards, you know, because my brain was just like gone, if that makes sense.
Oh, it does make sense. And part of it must have been strange for you because you're so high, you're feeling so good, you feel like you're this undiscovered celebrity.
Mhm.
And then people try to tell you, no, no, that's not the case. You're just not thinking clearly.
Mhm.
Part of you must be like, get the F out, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
you nailed it. I mean, that's exactly what happened. And
Yeah.
my friend had come over, and at the height of of it all, you know, because in mania you can become aggressive, and that's what happened. But I was like seeing yellow and sunshine and flowers, and she came over with the look of fear in her eyes, and she was like, "What is going on?" You know. And I was like, "That's what happened." I was like, "If you can't be happy, get the out," you know, and
Right.
exactly what happened.
Yeah. Amazing. Amazing. But once you got into treatment, you started realizing that things weren't right and that they were correct with their diagnosis. What was your treatment like? Did you have to stay inpatient at the facility? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's a big part of it. I was inpatient, like admitted and could not leave for like 10 days.
Mm.
In reality, I should have been there for far longer, but as you can imagine, it's very expensive. And so I was there for about 10 days. And when I was out, what happened was I was diagnosed bipolar at that point in time, put on meds because what goes up must come down. And they had to like bring that energy down. And what happened then was there was a siren. I apologize about that.
No worries, can't hear it.
What happened then was I got out of the hospital, okay, and I had no real even gravity of what happened at that point. So I was totally confused of what to do, and I had no idea that what was to come, right? And so I went back to work like I thought I was just going to be on medicine and I'd be okay. And when I went back, I was a server at Cracker Barrel at that time, and I felt crippled. I was flushed with anxiety and depression and didn't know how to move or communicate the right way, and just crippled with like fear at that point. And I think what I wanted to just highlight was questioning my entire personality. I thought that my whole personality, me talking to you right now, was a lie because I had just been manic my whole life, so that was the worst part of it.
Amazing, amazing. So you were, with your bipolar disorder, you really weren't suffering the lows. You were only suffering the highs. Um,
Yeah, exactly. I'm sorry, I didn't want to cut you off.
no,
Yeah,
no, no.
so I believe that bipolar 1 and bipolar 2, they're two different things. I am bipolar 1 because it's defined by having at least one manic episode, and that's more of the dramatic of the two. And my personality was high, I was manic, but when I came down, it was like manic depressant,
Right.
depression can set in. So it was after that happened, I got very clinically depressed and just didn't know who I was, and all of that.
Amazing. Amazing. So 10 days in the hospital. When do things start getting back to normal for you, though?
Yeah, so I get out of the hospital, and that's what I call like the aftermath, right? And
Right.
so it took, I mean, I'll say it took 5 solid years for like the light to come back on, but it took really 2 years to just work out medications, finding the right doctors, your support system, and all that kind of stuff. And that's what I feel like a lot of people have to know is it is a progression, to gaining stability back in your life. And that's really the first thing to focus on. You can't focus on like your confidence yet. Like you just need to focus on stability. And then after that 5 years, my light came back on and my personality came back. And I was then able to really focus on other facets of my life at that point.
I would imagine the adjustments of medication have to be done extremely incrementally to
Mhm.
get just the right balance where you're not too high, you're not too low, where you feel like Felicia again.
Yes, yes. And a
Yeah.
lot of people they don't believe in medicine or it doesn't work for them or whatever. And I'm like, in my experience, I know that medication is there to get us from up here, to like down here. And then we have to do the rest of the work. But exactly, that's exactly right.
It's easy to be resistant to medication. You want to feel like you're strong, you can handle this on your own, but you're going to, very learned people who think you need medication. Take their advice, take the medication if they say you need it. But I do understand that, no doubt.
Mhm.
So in the book, you give a lot of tips on how people in similar situations can cope, adapt, and not only cope and adapt, but thrive. What are
Yeah.
some of those suggestions that you have for people?
Yeah, golly, there's so many things I could say. I think I want people to know that not only bipolar, the book is truly about trauma. I have been told by a lot of people that who are not bipolar that they got so much out of it. And I think at the end of the day, this is about when trauma happens, how to heal and how to rebuild your life from that. Because I think, putting a band-aid over everything, and it bleeds out into your life because we haven't really healed from that. And I think stability in whatever format comes first, extracurricular activities and toxic relationships. But I think for me, it was very much the meds, the doctors, the routine, gaining that kind of center and then focusing on routine. But this is what is so important, and I wanted to share this with your audience, and I hope they like this part, is it is about finding your pride. Where do you find your confidence again and your independence? And that's what a lot of it is, I think, is the internal stuff, feeling good and feeling you again and going in that direction in any facet.
Exactly. You mentioned in the book that humor plays a role in the journey to recovery as well. Tell us, I guess you take a chance, you laugh at yourself a little bit from time to time. It makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think so many times in our lives we have these serious things that happen, right? but you have to tell the story later and make it somehow lighthearted, right? You have to somehow find the value in that and move on and just and have a good time, you know? And I think dark days can happen tomorrow, but let's try to have a good day today, you know?
Yeah, chapter 8, Crazy Nights, no doubt.
Exactly,
Which
right.
is a great way to look at it when you had your episode. Um, Mental health and the diagnosis of it sometimes, and still it seems, suffers under some kind of stigma. You know what I mean? You tell people you have cancer, heart disease, MS, that's one thing. You tell people I'm bipolar, they react funny. So
Yeah.
how have you been able to deal with that as far as like people's reaction and their ignorance when it
Yeah.
comes to a mental health diagnosis? Because we probably all have some kind of mental health diagnosis if we talk to somebody, right?
Yeah, well, you know what's wild is when I wrote the book, I mean, everybody I feel like I talked to has been touched somehow with mental illness or mental health or whatever. And I think that that is such a good, the stigma is so hard because I think the more we talk about it, the more normal it becomes. And it used to be like bipolar was like, oh my gosh, what the heck is wrong with her, you know? But I'm very open about it because I'm like, it is what it is. You know, it's just a
Right.
part of who you are. It's not who you are. You know, it's just like being diabetic. It's just part of the game. And the more we talk about it, the more normal it is, and it's okay, and we can get through it, you know.
Exactly. Why did you name the book Be Happy or Get the F Out?
Well, before I even wrote the book, I knew what it was going to be called because I, number one, wanted it to stand out. Okay.
Yeah.
And I also, I have a little bit of language in the book. So I wanted people to know there's going to be language in it. And I that was the height of the whole manic episode. And I think too, throughout the book, there's different times where I say, so go be happy or get the F out, because I think in different stages of our life, we have to tell ourselves that. Like, what do I have to do to get through this trauma? Because I need to just rock on and focus on happy, you know? I
Exactly.
keep saying,
Focus on the recovery, focus on getting better, focus on being your best self.
mhm.
All the other distractions, to heck with you, without a doubt. The name of the book is Be Happy or Get the F Out, a bipolar success story and your guide to hope, recovery, and designing a life you love. It is an empowering book that details Felicia's journey through bipolar disorder, from struggling with diagnosis to embracing a fulfilling, joy-filled life. The book is filled with humor, unfiltered honesty, and in it, the author shares practical tools and personal insights to help others take charge of their own mental health and rewrite their own success stories. Thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight, Felicia.
Thank you so much. I was so happy to be here.
So happy to have you on the show, and we appreciate your wisdom, your candor, and your insight. To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.